got these two weird courses of action playing through my head. So weird. So this is kind of like a little bit, that's cold. A little bit about what like goes in my head, right? So I got these two scenarios playing. I'll spare you the details. But by overanalyzing, overthinking, I can see the probability of both of those things potentially coming to. I wish I could get deeper into the nature of how deep of a concept this is. I like to say how everything happens for a reason, and the reason I say that so much is because there's a reason. Because I study it. I study the reason behind everything, and how to learn from that reason to prepare for a tomorrow that's more in line with what you see up here. Does that make sense? I think so. Because the two particular events I'm talking about, I've been doing a lot of work on this for a long time. Now, granted, I'm aware that none could happen, or these two be replaced by other ones. That happens too. It's like when you follow your instincts, when you follow your intuitions and just kind of go, overthinking everything, trying to analyze and rationalize and figure out maybe not hard probability, but hypothetical probability. That, if you understand what I mean by that is like not expecting it to happen, but knowing that the probability is hypothetically there. And if it is, what else could be hypothetically there? And when you start to see things like that, you have to realize that you can't just go there. Like, it doesn't just come to you. I don't know. That's what I'm testing. One is a controlled experiment. The other, we're going to test fate and see if perhaps, maybe, the line was never blurred to begin with. It's a neat experiment, right? It's going to take a long time. And it's something I've been working on for 7 months. This is just like one little thing. In like a grander scheme of what I want to do with my life. Some people want to be a teacher. Some people want to be a cop. I have bigger aspirations. That's it. It's not like It's not like I want to force my shit on anyone. I have a goal, and that's where I want to go. What's the problem? I don't think there is. I don't think anybody has a problem. I don't know. It doesn't matter though, right? I don't think so. I don't think it does. I don't think it does, because I think if it really mattered to people, they would say something. So I don't let it bother me. So when I try to show that it matters, nobody shows it back. So you would think that if you took away what they want, they would respond. But sometimes it takes some time. Sometimes it takes forever. I don't even know. That's the interesting thing about the experiment. Is to see how far people are willing to go over a grudge. If there's even a grudge. But you have to assume that if there was no grudge, then they'd be like you, because you don't hold a grudge. Unless they think you hold a grudge. But you've told them that you don't hold a grudge. And it may not be a conscious grudge. It could be potentially a subconscious grudge. Mm-hmm. Do you believe in subconscious grudges? Do you believe that you don't hold anything against anyone? Because I don't think you really do. I don't believe that other people can do it. I don't. Because if they could, why don't I see more people like me? See, I talk some stupid shit sometimes, but I don't hold it against anyone. I actually formulated a way, a literal, it's repeatable, absolutely repeatable. That's how I learned to do it. I just do it on my own now. I train myself to automatically do the things that I would normally have to write down and like make a habit out of doing. I used to have to set alarms on my phone to remind myself of things, to remember that this aspect of my life needed to change, and it needed to change in a very specific way, and it needed to change in a way that, what I mean is, I had to change my thinking on it. That makes a lot more sense. I had to change the way I thought about things, and in doing that, and that's the main basis of everything I've been working on, is changing the way that you think about things, in that you accept that all possibilities are correct, all opinions. But in doing so, you also look at them all. Allow yourself to really put some thought into it. And it doesn't have to be just shit you don't like. The things that you hold dear to you, I mean. You don't have to worry about mysticism and religions and all this shit. Not at all. All you have to do is listen to yourself and change the way that you think about this thing. Because you know deep down you don't, there's nothing wrong. That all the shit's in your head. But the reason we can't get rid of it is that it's been so ingrained into our existence that it's become reality. And even when you don't, when it is just up in your head, because a lot of the times I believe it could be, but I don't know. And when it's in your head, all you have to do is kind of like retrain yourself. And that's really what I was thinking about with my old life, is I couldn't reconcile whether it was in my head or if I was right. But the problem was, every time I would attempt to see it if it was in my head, I received evidence, my own analyzation of the situation, that it fit more into the probability of it wasn't in my head. But then I have to go back and retrace my steps and look at it the other way and think, well, I could also see how it could be interpreted as being in my head. I try to take a step back and remember how I used to think and imagine what I would do in the exact same situation that the other person was in. See, that's something that a lot of people don't do. They say they do, but they don't always do it to everyone. Because that's the thing. You can't hold a grudge against anyone. No one. No one, no one, no one, no one, no one. Not the dog. Not the goldfish. Like, you have to learn to let go of all of that crap. And you can believe in anything or nothing you want, but this is a universal way of looking at things. Like, there's no reason. I mean, granted, if you're watching this and you can give me a very good reason why this is not a revolutionary way of thinking, please, I would love to know. Because what I'm looking for is kind of like a rationalization of why it would make sense to begrudge people. Because ultimately, the human consciousness, and we're going to get a little technical here, the goal of the human consciousness, mystic or not, you can be an atheist if you want. The point is to learn the lessons of our past. That's why we keep repeating them over and over again. Everyone says they believe in karma, but nobody ever tries to understand why it works or how it works. No one can explain it. All they can say is good shit happens when you do good shit, and bad shit happens when you do bad shit. Yeah, but why? You never wonder why? Because I can tell you from my experience that when you actually stop, take a fucking minute, and look at why, it's fucking crazy. But anyway, back to what I was saying. There's no reason to be holding grudges against people at all, unless you love doing it. It doesn't have to be your boyfriend or girlfriend. It could be your boss, your coworker. It could be fucking anyone. Your kid, yourself. You really gotta. And realistically, I don't know what people think outside of my head. I imagine what they think. I imagine what they think because I watch how they all act. Everyone. And when I see how they act, I can kind of guess how they're going to behave in certain situations, and they always do. Every time. Sometimes there's a slight behavioral change once in a while. Some of them you can see like a change in behavior the more people spend time with me. because my way of thinking kind of, I told you I'm fucking like this all the time. You can see how the gears start changing in other people, and you'll notice slight skews in behavior. But, and this kind of goes into my study of the ego and the intuitive mind, but usually when you see those behavioral changes and people starting to change the way they think of things, think about things, the ego mind will send them a shock to the system. Usually in a weird way. Like, a person, let's say you're trying to change your behavior with anyone, okay? And by change your behavior, what I mean is realize that your shitty behavior is perpetrating their shitty behavior. And by, I might have misused that word. What I mean by perpetrating, yeah, I totally misused it. It's propagating. It's making it happen. The things you're doing are making them do that, or the things you're not doing, which you know that you should be doing because you think about doing them, but you never do. Because right before you build up the courage to do it, your ego sends you something that scares the fuck out of you. Like, they do the thing. They do that thing. But it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Each time it gets scarier and scarier. Until you just finally go, fuck it. No, I don't even want to think about it. And you go into your hibernation for a little bit, where you get distracted. And then it comes back. That's a karmic loop. And when you recognize that pattern, you can start analyzing the situations. And you can change your behavior based on what you perceive other people doing to your behavior. You're studying you. You're looking at you. Trying to see why you do the things that you've been doing for so long. That when you do them instinctively, you see how people act to those situations. But you have to be conscious of that. So you have to be able to take a step back. You literally have to split your mind into the observer and the doer. The observer is the analytical. I like the way that sounds. Sounds smart. And I think that's really a perfect way of doing it, because when you can take a step back and be the observer, I'm not talking about observing all that. I'm talking about observing this. Observing what's going on into that ego mind, the doer. What is the doer thinking? Why is the doer thinking that way? Why does he want to go that way instead of that way? It's like fucking weird. It's really weird, because when I think like that, and that's usually when I get into these little stupid little fucking things, like, I think you can tell the difference, like, my face gets, like, kind of, or my voice starts getting very weird. Like, there's two aspects to the way I behave, and they are not independent of each other. They're the same thing. They're the same person. It's just a different perspective, I guess, would be the way to explain it. I mean, they both have a way of thinking. One's more abstract and one's more literal. And the one plans what the other one's going to do, how the other one should do. Right? Because the observer doesn't control this. If it does, I don't know. it's like more of a thinking tool. It's a tool. Think like that. Okay, that's like what people call their intuition. That the gut feeling, the one that's like, that's the one that when you're thinking to somebody before they call, or like that weird tingle feeling when you see a coincidence of some significance. There's a reason behind that, and my personal belief is that it's some kind of little doggy treat from the universe going, good job, just keep doing what you're doing. But other times we get those shitty ones, usually with relationships and work and shit, our own behavior. But we don't know why we do it, we just do it. We think we know why we do it. Because we justified it. We justified it in a way that takes the blame away from you. Which is normal behavior, I think. And I say that because now that I no longer behave in the way that I used to behave, I don't think the way that I used to think. Not in the same way. See, that's the thing. I used to think like this all the time. When I was a kid. To not care about what other people think. But see, here's the thing, it was flawed back then. It was predicated on fear. And what I mean by that is, in order to achieve the same results mentally in those days, I'd have to consume mass quantities of chemical, how do you say, enhancers. And the results of which were less than par. That means not good. And they followed me for 30, till about, I don't know, there's a specific date. I think I was talking about it last night, maybe. You saw that long thing. There's a specific time frame of when I can see a sequence of events that kind of began this chain reaction. This wasn't like an overnight thing. This was a work in progress that began when I like to say when my wife went to rehab. My ex, I think. She was gone for a week. It was the first time we had not seen each other for that long. It was very bizarre. I didn't want to drink. I used to drink all my issues. Anytime my head got foggy, started thinking about things, I would drink. But it wasn't just like, it was everything, all the stress and all the fear. But it had been the way that I was in the past, because at a time it was for fun, and then it turned into a way to help me get over these things, because when I would drink, I'd be able to think, because I'd be able to think like he did, It wasn't the best, but we had a couple of cool ideas. But then, once I started to change the behavior that was fucking me up, I started to realize, oh my god. Oh my god, I fucked up. I fucked up for a long time. So I gotta make up for that. I gotta make up to me. Is that selfish? Is it selfish to think that, and tell me if you disagree, you can't make anybody happy if you can't make yourself happy. No? I'm not happy. You think I'm happy living in a fucking room? In my mother's house? I have a house. I have a home. And I have a car. I have fucking connections in the graphic industry where I could go back to a normal way of life like that. And I'll be fucking successful as fuck. Because the person I was, the person who set that all up, who created that life, he was smart. He wasn't fucking a fraction of as smart as I am. Because though that little thing he built, as insignificant and mundane as it is, it's always a fallback. And if not, I can do anything I want. I can go be a fucking busboy if I want, and I'll be fine. I'm that confident in the way that I've seen things play out throughout my life over the past 7 months, while learning the patterns and seeing the sequence of events that all happened. By saying everything happens for a reason, it's not just like a fun thing I say. It's a philosophy that I have. And I believe I cannot be happy until I make the existence that I want. And there's a few things I want. But here's the thing. Is that I know that you can't have them all at once. You need patience. You need to know how to get there. You need to know what to do. Well, I think to an extent. To an extent. See now this is where the balance comes back and forth. Because you can call me a hypocrite, but that's the way I think. I think in those terms. Yes and no. There's a benefit to both. It's just about figuring out what's the best course of action for you. Because yeah, you can put your blinders on and just go. Yeah, these things will come eventually. Yeah, no problem. But are you sure that's what you want? What you need and what you want are two different things. Like I said, you need to learn lessons in life, and you need to experience and grow. Unless you believe in stagnation. Because if you and this other thing, be it another person, job, experience, whatever, if you do the same thing over and over again, you eventually learn everything that there is to learn up until that point. when you can no longer learn anything is when it becomes a problem. That's when you see the grudges. Because you're not learning anything. Because you're not learning from the mistakes. But there's so many mistakes that nobody's learning anything. And you're just going through these loops and 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 loops. Once in a while you get a reprieve. You get a weekend off. It's brainwashing. Start looking at things. Start asking why. Start looking at the reason why things happen and learning to look at things a little bit skewed. You don't have to fucking twitch and move your hands around like a lunatic. You can just simply, you might end up. Who knows? Because I think a lot of this shit is like ticks from the reprogramming I did to myself. I created a whole new human being. Almost from scratch. I don't do any of the things I used to do. Well, I don't know there's much else. I'm sure there's little ticks here and there that need to be fine-tuned and rewired. I mean, it's nothing. It's a constant. It's a constant work of art. Working on the mind, to reprogram the personality to be the way that you want it to be. And what does that mean? Is I don't want to fucking sit in a goddamn bed all day. I want to be outside, where it's nice, where it's warm. It's fucking winter. I like this. This is hell. But other than that, I mean, other than being outside, I mean, I would like to be working with people and discussing these things. I don't understand why this is such a hard concept. Is that we live in a society where death is worshipped. The death of the mind. And the spirit. It's called the spiritually dead. Like nobody, they're just so caught up in this material cycle of going over the same thing over. You've actually been trained to see life as just this linear path, which is fine. You don't have to do anything you don't want to, but the point is you don't have to do anything you don't want to. That includes what you're doing. Unless you want to do it. But if it makes you upset and mad, why do you keep doing it? Like I don't understand that. That's where I can't figure that one out with people. Because I know that when I was doing it, I fucking hated it. I couldn't stand it. There was a story about the slicey. I used to break my shit all the time. I never... Maybe I should have fucking started beating people up. I would have saved myself a lot of money and fucking stuff. Jail, right? Yeah, I know what you mean. Oh, God. And you know what a lot of the temper was? What was it? It was anger at myself or being too afraid to not do the things I was doing. So you're just taking it out on stuff. Myself. But see, now that's the thing. I recognize that I did that. I don't do that anymore. There's no reason to. Because now that I see that there's more possibilities than what I had originally anticipated when I was like everybody else. Because when I was like that, and I say like everybody else, I could be wrong. I'm sure you have your own thoughts. I'm sure I'm not reading your mind right now. So, when I was like that, I recognized I hated everything. There were some good spots. There was things I liked, but for some reason, all the good stuff had this coating of shit. And I was trying to start washing everything off, but some things, they don't want to get washed. They get this mind of their own. But then you see that layer of shit's everywhere. It's always been there. Even before you. People before you, and the people before them, and the people before them. I've been studying this for so long. There is no one doing what I'm doing. There's nobody. I can't fathom this. Like it really drives me insane. But you know what? The reason why I believe that is because, like I said, everyone thinks life is this linear path. I've integrated so many personalities and mind frames and mindsets, I mean, and just so many ways of thinking that weren't my own. You see, what I do is, when I talk to people, you all have this slightly skewed version of reality. So, when I speak with people, and I listen to them, I hear how they think. I analyze it. When someone tells me a story, I then relate it to a similar situation that's going on in my life, because there's no such thing as a coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. So when someone talks to you, start paying attention. Start to notice how it relates to something in your life, because it does, and you're not noticing, because when or you are noticing, and you're getting defensive. Oh, that makes so much sense. Because you haven't been able to conquer the resentment you hold toward yourself over that thing. That's interesting, because let me repeat that just for my own mind's sake. But when you get defensive, it's because you haven't been able to conquer your ego over the resentment you hold against yourself for that thing. Deep thoughts. So how do you get over that? It's very simple. And I guess this is coming full circle. How do you get over that resentment? What you do is, I hope you're impressed with this, because I think this is so cool. What you have to do is look back in the event that caused the resentment in the first place. Well, at least the most recent one. Because you'll notice that there's more. They never stop. Okay. So now we're in that situation. I'm gonna use my ex as an example. What am I resenting? Because though we resent ourselves, we rationalize it against other people. But once we forgive them, it's usually just a matter of forgiving ourselves, but we can't forgive anyone else until we forgive ourselves. So what is it that I'm resenting? The words that I'm resenting. I spent so much time with someone. No, that's not what I mean. I didn't finish the thought. I resent that I spent so much time with someone without acknowledging this stuff in my head. But then you have to remember that there wasn't a choice, because you didn't think that way, and the reason you didn't think that way is because no one ever taught you. But then you have to ask the question, well, why didn't I think about it myself? Because at the time, you thought it was the right thing to do. Because again, no one ever showed you. It's not their fault because no one ever showed them. And no one ever showed them, and no one ever showed them. You see, this is just like deeply ingrained bad dog syndrome. Because do you actually forgive yourself for thinking that way? For living in a way that didn't give a fuck about anything? Like, do you think that's a bad thing? You know, yeah, you might have been out of control. There was a reason you were out of control. You were supposed to learn a lesson. And the lesson wasn't that you needed to stop. I'm not saying that you needed to continue. I'm just saying there was a deeper lesson involved. You have to ask yourself what it was. What was it you were running from? Myself? The character I was playing was starting to infect my mind. When I say the character I was playing, I mean the doer. Because at a time, each one had lived. Well, I'm talking about the concept of the personality. And I say doer, I mean the person I was at work and my career path, who wasn't the same as the person, the actual person, not the construct, the robot. The word robot doesn't mean machine, robot. The origin of the word, it's a Czechoslovakian word. It's based off a Czechoslovakian play called Robot. And the word, there's no robots. The word means slave. That slave mentality, the one that doesn't like me saying this, the one that's getting pissed off at me saying you're a slave, and you got duped. that your whole life's been a sham. It's been a sham to wake you up. This sounds fucked up. You had to live a shitty life. And when I say shitty, I'm not judging. I'm saying a shitty life, like, it sucked. Like, there was hardships, there was pain, there was loss, there was lots of sadness and being mad. But the point of all of it was to teach you a lesson on how to be happy. Because here's the fucked up thing, is you can't appreciate joy until you appreciate the opposite. But people have been trained to get stuck in that. Because have you heard the term of multi-dimensions? Multi-dimensional thinking, multi-dimensional beings. I know it's kind of like way out there, and the people that talk about it, they look like, what the fuck is wrong with people, man? Perception, you see, that's the thing, is they're all tools. Yeah, they are tools, but I mean, they're also metaphorical tools of a system that keeps you confused and constantly guessing, constantly afraid. Because what that means is you're freeing your mind to think in multi-dimensions. That's what being a multi-dimensional being means. That's what cross-changing, living in other dimensions, and that's all it is. You're freeing up space in your mind to think more than laterally, literally. To allow the imagination to expand, because, and I don't mean imagination like you're drawing stick figures, but I mean imagination in that the mind of the observer, the mind that doesn't think in words, thinks in concepts and ideas, thinks in images, symbols. It's what some call the sacred feminine mind, where the ego would be the sacred masculine, positive and the negative aspects. What I just described is the deepest secrets of the esoteric traditions, the real ones. Well, the authentic ones. Well, you have to understand a lot of them to grasp that concept fully. And you need to be able to think in more than one direction at the same time. It's hard to explain, but you can do it. You can. Everyone can do it. It's the natural order of the consciousness. But the problem is that we've been so ingrained with um, that behavioral um, shit, the behavioral imprinting of society, and it's not just TV and entertainment culture. It's also in the way that people have been educated to think. It's a combination of everything. The way that people are made educated to think, the way that um, we are presented with entertainment and I was going to call it wisdom, but with information, it's it's all designed to feed the ego, because the egoic mind has a grudge against the intuitive mind, sacred feminine mind that everybody has. It's part of the and what a lot of people don't. You can't say. I worked with a church for a little bit. I was working with actually they had priests there. It was really fucking cool experience. He and I we shared an interest in the deeper aspects of spirituality, the conscious ramifications thereof. Well, that was mostly my aspect. He was more interested in what the hell I was saying. At least that's, he acted like he was interested in it. We had a few discussions that actually were very interesting. It was interesting to be able to sit down with a man who devoted his life to his spirituality, because you don't see that very often. Because I've essentially done the same thing, but my spirituality is my philosophy, which is my way of life. There's no worshiping, there's no going to church or anything. It's just a way of thinking that, and it's the science I believe in too, because it's provable. I can actually, like I was saying last night, I wrote 7 books detailing my entire process. Yes, they're written in journal form, but it's not about the literal translation of what the words say. It's about what the words make you feel. It's a roadmap of my mind to teach the reader not only how to think about things differently, but how to look at the things in their own lives differently, so that they can achieve what it is that they're looking to achieve. Because remember, you're not going to take anything literally anyway. I mean, your ego mind is just, think of it like this. Here's your ego, here's your intuitive. You're like this. Maybe like that. Yeah, let's go more like that. It's a struggle, because when you get this one too much in control for a little bit, it's like working out. Okay, you can't lift 1,000 pounds on your first try, and if you can, hey, fuck it, if you can do it, run with it. But I've never met anyone who would, because I can't. I want to believe that there are people that can. I've been looking for people who can, but every attempted what? Attempt at growing something from that did not go as planned. But that's what I'm talking about when I was talking about earlier about still fine tuning and rewiring things. Is there's though everybody is different. I'm trying to learn how to pick up on those subtle cues, because you're not all that different. You some of you. I'm not gonna finish that sentence today. But people are not as different as everybody thinks. So in my books, they are written in a way that, yeah, it's my story. It's my story of what I was going through and what was going through my mind at the time that I was going through it. But the point is that your mind is going to take in that data, analyze it, and start rationalizing it compared to a sequence of events that are eerily similar in your life. Maybe not eerily similar all the time. Sometimes it's going to be. I had someone talk to me about car parts, and I related it to my family. And it gave me this idea that I didn't have before. But it was because I listened to that story and I allowed my mind to process it, and it was doing it while I was listening to the story, so that was kind of hard to wrap my head around too, because I'm listening to someone speak while I'm thinking about how everything, as the words they're saying, are going into my ears and processing in my brain. My brain is showing me video clips of some different scenarios based on what I'm hearing. It's fucking cool. It's fucking really cool. And that's what I meant earlier about integrating other people's personalities. Because that way of thinking wasn't in there before. Now that way of thinking is. So it's like when you communicate with people, that's what it is. That's what you're supposed to be learning, is figuring out is what you're supposed to be learning from the things that you hear. I've been saying this a lot lately because I've been finding it very relevant to say, but think of it like this. It's same soul, different body. You're just teaching yourself something. Pretty fucking cool. And sometimes people want to merge. I think that's where the reproductive process comes in. I just had this really... Oh my god, this is going to get me in a lot of trouble. Oh no. Oh no. Listen. I know... Oh my god. I don't know, maybe I'm being over dramatic. I'm just thinking... We're doing a lot of thinking lately on the female mind. How it differs from the male mind. I don't consider myself to think like other men. At all. I see how they act. They act like fucking children. They're so fucking gross. It's sad. They act like children. They act like their mommies. Or they act like their daddies who act like their mommies. There's a reason for that. Remember when I said merging minds? I have a philosophy that when you have a child with someone, that not only is it a merging of the two people, but also what comes with the people is the consciousness, the mind. I believe that children are our chance for better karma with that person, a chance to live forever. That makes sense. In one body. Because I recognize that the two halves of my mind, they're not me. I mean, they're me, but I know who they come from because I see the behavior in my parents that's in me. Granted, my father's dead, but I know enough about my father that actually his death is kind of what was a major catalyst for this. Which is a theory. I'll get to another time. Oh, well, it's a long story. But I can see it. I can see the behavioral differences between when I am in egoic control, and when I am egoic way of thinking, and when I'm in an intuitive way of thinking, and it's actually pretty interesting because I can rationalize, especially behavior of my parents, but more so, my mother will tell me stories, and I can actually see them in my head because I understand why it would have gone the way that she's explaining it, because I know her version of the story is only her version of the story. It's a skewed version. But I can actually paint the actual picture in my mind because I know how my father used to think. Because I think like him. And being that I have now her knowledge, I can put it all together. If that makes sense. Because remember what I said, like, it's not her stories that are important. It's how she tells them. That skewed version. Because that skewed version is making me think of something. And I'm integrating that way of thinking into my own. And granted, being that she is my mother, there is things I need to learn from her that I never learned as a child because we didn't have a very good relationship until my father died, So that's kind of why I felt like I needed to come here. Like, people think this is a pity party for me. Like, I had a fucking really good thing going. I had a fucking great thing going. I was so pissed I had to come here. Like, when I tell you I was working with a church, like, it wasn't like I was fucking going there. Like, I was going there to, like, pay respects. Because the head priest was my best friend. No, we didn't, like, hang out every single day. But at the time, for me, personally, he was the only person that I was able to communicate to like this. Because he understood everything that I was saying based upon his religious knowledge. Okay? Because he didn't just believe in the Bible. There's deeper aspects to the Bible and the philosophies behind it, and this man wasn't just like what people think a priest is, and I'm really kind of curious what people think priests really do. Well, no, I take that back, because he wasn't the only priest there. There was a few, and the others, they weren't like him. He was different. What the way I perceive them, because they wouldn't have the same conversations. They weren't capable of having the same conversations with me as he did. And if they did, they didn't show it. And my concern there is that they were not into what they were doing as much as I thought that they were into it. I believe that it was more of an ingrained thing rather than a passion. Because I was curious about priests. That's why I was very interested in working with the church. Because my devotion to understanding my philosophical, spiritual beliefs go to extremes that I've never seen or heard of before. Well, no, that's not true. I've heard of a few. There have been people that do this. Not many. They usually get a very bad rap. But which I'm trying to avoid. Because I know what those other people were doing. And I know what they found. Well, something similar. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of thinking outside of the box. That's all it is. There's nothing evil. No, it's only as evil as you want it to be. And what's evil? Whatever you want evil to be. And realistically, because I think it's evil, does that make it evil? I don't think so. You think it's good for some reason. There's a reason you think it's good. Why do you think it's good? Because I told you it's evil, it has to be bad? I can't tell you what to think. That's your own thing. You can think that anywhere. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a shit what people do. You wanna go fuck kids and go barbecue them on the grill and eat them afterwards? Go for it, man. If that's what knocks your rocks off. Just leave me the fuck out of it. And make sure you're getting consent. If you feel deemed, if you think that's necessary. I don't know. I just can't be one of those people that like dwell on the motives of other people that bear no significance in my life. My concern is with the ones that are in my life, because those are the ones that directly affect me. But then that goes back to what I was saying, different soul. Same soul, different body. Just because this thing has a connection doesn't matter. It's an interesting question. Everything's temporary, even relationships. It was the same soul. That's going into a whole different area of thinking. Because at that point, what you have to understand then is what I was saying before about the two aspects of the mind. The two aspects of the mind join and are basically like the soul. It's the positive and the negative, the male and the female, they come together, they join to create consciousness. What is you? And there's a way to focus more on one side than the other. But the essence of what that consciousness is one aspect of a greater whole. Okay, does that make sense? So now, when you think of it like that essence of the consciousness, that greater whole, it's all the same thing. So not only are all the pieces, this is like a 1 = 0 type of concept, which I don't even understand that fully. I want to get started on 1 = 3. That'll fuck you up for a couple days. But I think I'm gonna wrap this up because I need a cigarette or something. I feel associated to talk to my mom.